Hello chaps, and welcome to my build update number 2 video for the Revell Messerschmitt Me 410B-2 U4 148 scale. This is my entry into the Me 410 body build, being hosted by myself and Torsten Schumacher. So after build update number 1, completing the aircraft, it was on to priming. I used Stynel Res Grey, and then I pre-shaded with a dark grey paint mixed from black and white. That's the underside. And then when that was dry, I then painted the underside RLM 76 Lichtblau, and then toned it down with some white and did some highlights. Next, I masked the upper side, ready for the RLM 75 Grau Violet. Airbrushed that in place, and then toned it down with some white and did some highlights. And then I clear coated that with a gloss clear coat to seal it, let it dry, and that allows me to put masking tape on top without fearing any paint peel. And I masked along the edges, and then airbrushed the RLM 74 Grau Grün. I then added some white to it and airbrushed some highlights, toning that colour down. Excuse me. I then masked the tail end after doing the mottling, which I've missed a picture of. Got that mask ready for the white tail band and the white rudder area. Airbrushed those, removed the masking, and that's how it looked. I then took a couple of images of the paintwork so far, and you'll see the mottling in that view there, you can see it. So then that was given a clear coat, allowed to dry, and it was on to decaling. So I got everything ready, what I needed to decal. But oh dear, as soon as they were submersed in water, they crumbled. So panic, what do? So I went on to Facebook and went into the modelling forums and put in a request if anybody had any decals. I had a response from a young chap named Joshua Senecal, who kindly sent me a nice set of decals, as you can see there, printed in 2013. Very nice looking. So that saved the day, and he was also kind enough to include another little extra thing, a set of his jump wings from when he served with the US Marine Corps. Thanks for that, Josh, really appreciate it. So his decals, as you can see, went down beautifully, and I started off with the port side wing upper, moved over to the starboard side wing upper, and then stencils on the upside elevators. I then did the port side fuselage, those little stencils, and that's the tail end of the port side. And then flipped around, did the starboard side, that's the tail end stencils. And this is the port side engine stencils. I then flipped her over, did the port side wing stencils and cross, and then the starboard side stencils and the cross, and then moved to the back side and did the underside stencils on those elevators. And then it was putting the spirals onto the spinners and the stencils onto the machine gun housings. Then it was on to putting those machine guns onto the model, so I glued them into the housings, painted the machine guns, and stuck them into the side of the fuselage. That's the starboard side, and that's the port side. As you can see, they need a bit of blending in there, because they just painted the blue, so I needed to do some airbrushing there. Anyway, everything was sealed in, the decals were, and then it was on to weathering. So I mixed a black and white together to make a stone colour wash, painted that all over, wiped it off, that was to fade things. I then did a pin wash on the upper side for the panel lines, moved the excess, and then continued with that panel wash around all the fuselage, and then flipped her over and did all the underside with a pin wash, and then rubbed off the excess with Q-tips, leaving some nice shaded panel lines. Next I wanted to give it a filter, so I mixed an RLM02 grey toned down with white and then thinned it down with 80% thinner, and then did a misting, fine misting of that all over the top side, and it acts as a filter, mutes things together. And it was onto these angular stripes, onto the horizontal stabilizers, masked those, airbrushed the white, and then after that excuse me, I did some chipping with some chrome silver. That was on the propellers, and then I did it on parts all over the model. I then mixed some brown black acrylic wash with a bit of rust and did some streaks, staining. And then when that was done, I was happy with that. I sealed everything in with a final matte clear coat, and then it was on to doing some of the staining for the mud staining excuse me, exhaust staining, and that's mud splatter where the wheels are going to be, and then I did some staining around where the machine guns are. I then removed the windows and the masking, removed the temporary located wheel bay doors. I then glued in the lens, the navigation light lens, landing lens, and then it was onto the small peripheral parts that have got to be assembled. I glued them to a piece of styrene, primed them, then painted them, detailed them, gave everything a gloss clear coat excuse me, and then did some weathering, and then I sealed that all in with a final matte clear coat. And then I painted the lights. That was the port side light, red light, and onto the starboard green light, and then I went to the tail side white light. That white light didn't exist. I made that out of a blob of PVA glue, let it set, and painted it white. I then did some mud splatter on the main wheels and some mud staining down the walkways where the pilot and engineers have walked. And then it was on to fitting the parts. I started off with the tail wheel, fitted that in place, then I put the oleo struts in place for the main wheels, fitted the wheel bay doors, and then followed that up by fitting the wheels in place. Next I drilled an hole in the front side of the rudder, the vertical stabilizer, and then scratch built a little mount point for the antenna cables. While that was setting, I glued in the spinners, the props assemblies, followed by the big cannon in the nose. Then it was on to flipping her over and fitting the counterbalance weights, 4 of those, 2 to each flap, aileron, sorry. There they are, glued in place. I then glued the pilot and rear gunner step on the port side fuselage underneath the wing there. I then mounted the canopies in the open position and scratch built those 2 little latches, painted those, and then put in the pitot tube. And the last thing to do was do some cables out of fine easy line, super glued those in place, and then put some tension points made from PVA glue, let it set, and painted it aluminum. And that was it. That was the model made. All I had to do was paint the pilot and the rear gunner radio operator. So that's it, guys, for this final update. The next thing will be the final reveal, and I'll be releasing that in 6 days, 7 days time, next week, Wednesday. So until then, guys, Talio, chocks away.